Let's now take a look at other issues. On the back page of the Standard, there's a photo of an armed fan storming the pitch during the Zoo Kericho versus Bandari Kenya Premier League match at Kericho Green Stadium on Sunday. And you can see him somewhere trying to get his gun from his belt. Now, on the same daily, page 12, man kills himself after hit on wife. A man has committed suicide after shooting his wife. He shot himself in the head with a G3 rifle after shooting his wife, Purity Elim. Now, the 30-year-old man was said to have stolen the gun from a police officer after getting him drunk. Now, this coming very fast on the heels of the police reforms as announced by President Uhuru Kenyatta. One of the issues was that now police officers will be required to look for their own accommodation outside of camps, and they will now be integrating and staying with the common mwananchi. But the question does arise. What happens to these firearms that have been used even before for criminal activity, because most of them have been traced back to police officers? Ngunjiri.
Thank you very much. I am a member of the National Security Committee that looked through some of these reforms that were proposed. And one of the things that actually got us to the point of saying we need to allow police officers to go and get residence and live outside camps was twofold. First, we are turning or trying to turn the police force into a police service. And one of the difficulties that we have had is for as long as you keep police cut out from society into their own cocoon, then they're not part of the society in which we live in. And we also have to take responsibility with the fact that these police officers are our brothers and sisters. They come from our families. To imagine that because you have put them in a camp, they are not part of the society in which they come from, is to lie to ourselves. The kind of things that we have seen, these issues, when you compare how a police officer treats raya, as we call them when you meet them in the street, and then you see where that police officer goes to live. He's out there carrying a gun. We have spent so much money on him, on uniform, on boots, on kofias, on a firearm, on bullets. But then we're not willing to spend any amount of money on where he lives, where he and his family lives. So he's putting his life on the line for us, to protect us, whether it's in the village or it's in the bank, wherever it is. But then he goes home and lives in conditions you cannot live in. And that is, so we are dehumanizing police officers, and then we are expecting them to treat members of the public humanely. So this part of these reforms are supposed to get us to that point of where we actually have a humane way of treating our brothers and sisters who are working in the police force. Now,
do you think there's a risk of mishandling of firearms by the police? Of course. That they'll be there?
And the problem about these issues is that these incidents, we have close to 100,000 police officers. And there's absolutely no way we're not going to have bad apples in those 100,000 police officers. But we cannot use the bad apples to judge the police officers. What we need to do is create structures, and we have been pushing as a committee for a very strong internal audit mechanism, something that actually sorts out these officers before they actually start getting dealt with by the civilians. So that you get them off at the point where they have not caused harm. You're able to do psychological testing. We're also pushing for counseling for these officers. Remember, like these 12 bodies of babies that we're talking about, it's police officers who are going to handle them, take them to the morgue, investigate them. Every time somebody is killed somewhere or is drowned in a river, the people who actually go and remove that body are police officers. Nobody thinks about the psychological makeup of that officer after he has done that work. We assume he's going to do all that thing, dump the body in the morgue, and then come back.
These are the same people we are releasing into the community and saying, you go ahead and live with the rest of the members of the public. This mishandling of firearms, definitely it's a real risk.
Yes, I think so. And first and foremost, there must be a policy on which we follow when we make police reforms. I've not seen in the last parliament and this parliament any policy of that nature be debated by the floor of the House, so that we agree on the mechanisms under which we will handle police. And without a policy, you will keep on acting haphazardly. There are expenses involved. I did not see this as an item in the last budget. So which budget is this? So what should happen is that there's a lot of land wasted in a lot of police stations, a lot of public land. There should be a proper plan of developing, you know, by doing some flats. It's been done in the past, and you can give police decent housing. At the same time, yes.
You don't think this proposal to have them get their own accommodation outside of these camps should be the way to go?
It has risks to the public and to the police themselves. You know, a lot of Kenyans also, and especially criminals, don't like the police. So you get the police marked because they will either be dropped by a police vehicle or they will either take a public transport home. You are still uniformed, you are still carrying your gun. If that particular time you are not armed, you are likely to be attacked. You are likely to be marked where you live. Your family is likely to be targeted. I think that same money, which they're going to be given to do housing, there should be a choice for those who want to go and live at their own accommodation. Then they make a choice. That money is enough to develop enough flats where there's no corruption. It's enough to develop enough flats for police. And in the housing program, the first thing we should do is to utilize this land, which we have in very many police stations, and utilize, build decent flats there, very good accommodation, and our police officer will access work easily, and they will be able to serve the public. All police people come from a community, come from a village, they live with the people. It's only that if you don't treat them well, and they are likely also to treat you in the same way. So we need to treat them well. We need to know that they are very useful. They take care of the security. They take care of us in case of accidents, in case of deaths, all that, the first person to investigate is police. They are very, very useful. Okay. But I think this decision was rushed, was not well considered. There is no policy. There is no law. It cannot be you wake up one day, you decide to manage some funds, you decide, let me now pay this. You know the next challenge will be, because it's not the budget. There will be, these monies will not come for a long time. You have forced that police officer to rent. He is unable to pay rent 4 months because the monies will not be released in good time. Then what situation do you put that particular police officer in?
I think it is very, very unfortunate. And listening to Honorable Wambugu, I'm a very disappointed person. He was just gambling with words. There was no justification he has shown why this policy change should be there. I listened to him keenly, but there was no merit at all. And the president must listen to us.
And of course,
there must be a guided policy.
You don't feel that the need to have to remove that boundary between the community, the general society,
what are you talking about?
There's no justification
to remove the boundary.
Yes, you can't come and say at the issue of human beings is the issue that is bringing justification. No, these people exist in a society already. By them being isolated, it's just when they're going to rest. But daytime, where are they? They are moving all over. They are mingling with people. Work. They are in the streets. They're all over. So you can't come and tell us that that's the justification that you are moving the borderline. It does not justify at all. And I want to say this. This issue was changed. My thinking is because of the National Housing Development Fund, which was being forced in Parliament, that people must contribute to that fund immediately. And maybe they saw an opportunity that these police officers, let them go out, let them be given housing, and we are going to harvest. I think that must have been the intention. Absolutely. And this is something that we rejected in Parliament. You can't come and claim that every Kenyan must contribute to this National Housing Development Fund, and yet it has not been established by any statute. So in the wisdom of members of Parliament, we saw that this might be a room for corruption. And maybe, if they wanted that kitty to go higher, was to let the policemen go out, tell them that we're going to give you the money for housing, so that they contribute to that kitty, which we didn't have any framework how it's going to work. How do you contribute some money and you're told there's going to be a National Housing Development Fund and you're not assured of getting an allocation of the house? In fact, that is one of the Agenda 4 that we are going to kick out because it's actually room for corruption. Coming back to the issue of housing, if the government is serious about the welfare of the police officers, they must build for them conducive environment houses.
But you've seen the challenges you've seen over the years with that kind of approach.
No, the challenge has been that the housing has not been enough, okay? The issue is this: should have allocated more money to put up more apartments or more flats so that these people can be able to stay. The risk you're going to have is this, and I want you to listen to me. In many other jurisdictions, before any policy change is done, we need to have a paper which was studied, a conceptual framework kind of a paper, where it shows the merits and the demerits. The risk we have, like these people going out with guns, we are going to have a lot of cases of insecurity, in the sense that some of the same policemen are the ones who are going to be gangsters outside there. When they go to work, they go home very late. They are not going to surrender these arms in the armory that is in the police station. In many cases, we've been told even police go and hire these guns outside, the gangsters, to go and terrorize people. It's going to be a big threat. Look at this gentleman right now. He has a gun. He's a police officer. He had just gone to watch the game. And now, because his team has been beaten, you can imagine he's confronting the other person.
And there's also a different case of someone,
risky, yes.
an officer who got drunk and his gun was used to
and
actually...
again,
these
officers must be, they must move in a given guided manner.
Okay.
They should not just be allowed to mingle anyhow. Because people will snatch guns from them.
Okay, yes,
this is the risk we have.
Yes,
my problem with Mheshimiwa Chris is that, you know, the problem of opposing everything for the sake of opposing is that you don't actually even think through. He's saying he did not hear justifications for the reforms. I spent a few minutes articulating those reforms.
I said they're baseless.
And no, you said you didn't hear. And my problem is this.
I didn't see merit.
You see, this gentleman has a bodyguard who's a police officer, right?
Yes.
Who takes care of his security. This police officer is just like any other police officer. This issue of us trying to behave as if police officers are less human than the rest of us is what has put us in this problem.
That's not the case.
This is, when I listen to my brother speaking about these people, these people, I'm asking myself, what do you mean with these people? These people are our brothers and sisters. Every time when we are doing, the government is employing police officers, those of us in the security committee are being approached by our brothers. I have a few people in my constituency who you can help us get into the police force. These are the people who then we end up treating badly, as if once
That's
we put them... no. When I'm listening to my brother speak about officers here, I'm asking myself, for heaven's sake, these gentlemen are the ones who are protecting us. Each of us here has a police officer protecting them. We are talking about, this is a guy who is in your car right now. Listen, waiting for you. Let me finish. This is a guy who is protecting you, protecting your family right now. And then you talk about him as if he does not deserve to live like a normal
That's
Kenyan.
a very wrong assumption.
No, let me finish. I'm saying what I understood. Listening to you, this is what I understood.
No, that's wrong.
I understand you to be saying that we cannot trust this person to go and live in the society which he is protecting. I heard my brother saying that he socializes. Why does he have to go and live? He can go and live in a camp because the rest of the day he's with us. No, the rest of the day he's with us doing work. The people, how we socialize is when you finish work, you go and sit with your neighbors. Yes. You go and sit, your family hangs out with your neighbors.
The risk of the guns.
Of course, but these are 100,000 people. And I said the first statement I made was even in this house of ours, which has 349 members of parliament, some of them are rotten. Are we together? Out of 349 people who are elected, some of them are rotten. We have 100,000 people we have employed as police officers, and I have said we have put them in very difficult conditions. They're the ones protecting us, collecting dead bodies from the street, taking people to the morgues. We do not take care of their psychological impact, and then we get upset when a guy goes and misbehaves. It is our fault. The life of police officers we have right now is actually our fault.
Okay. You know, we must have a policy, then have a law. Then from there you are able to make other decisions. Yeah. What are you know, you cannot just make it haphazardly. This is a way you cannot even assure them that that amount of money you want to allocate to them monthly will be availed monthly. Their salaries have even been delayed for a long time. So the only way to secure this person and his family
whose fault is
to make sure that we have constructed serious houses, nice, decent flats.
Done it.
Nice, decent flats.
60 years
we have a serious, this is a time to do it.
Yeah.
And we have the
100,000 houses.
Yes, they can be done with the land we have in all police stations. We have a lot of land there, and it can be done. So I'm just asking for policy. There must be a policy which is debated, which is first of all prepared by experts in that department and the Department of Lands and Housing, and then comes to Parliament for debate. Then we allocate monies for that particular purpose, and the houses are constructed.
Were you at any point as a National Assembly, did you interact with this proposal before? Because he has mentioned the committee did.
The committee did.
Yes, but did it?
It has not brought to the floor
of the House. It doesn't have to come to the floor of the House.
No.
This doesn't need to come to the floor of the House.
You know, Honorable Wambugu is a first-timer member of Parliament.
Oh, come
and
on.
it's important for him to listen. There are the traditions in Parliament. Whatever comes in your committee can only be effected if it's been, if it has been tabled on the floor of the House, it has been discussed and it's been adopted.
This was a structural change in the police force. It did not have to come to Parliament.
Honorable,
you are still learning.
No.
So
don't be patronizing, my friend.
Honorable member here needs to
I
learn.
have people who have
anything in Parliament, anything in Parliament to be
moment.
implemented. When it comes to the committee, the committee discusses, and we have something called public participation. So if it's a policy change, the committee will call the relevant ministry, it will hear from the stakeholders, it will hear from the civil society, even there's no forum calling even the police themselves so that they hear their opinion. Yes. After the report has been written, it comes to the floor of the House, it has to be debated. And once the report has been debated, what happens? It gets adopted. Then we have the Committee of Implementation, which follows through for that implementation. You cannot discuss any issue, you leave it at the committee level, and you think should be implemented. He needs to learn.
At what level did you interact with this proposal?
First and foremost, let me make something clear. This restructuring of the police force was not as the kind of thing that, this was how do you put it? It's like the way a parastatal can create, can create changes for effectiveness, for better effectiveness and better efficiency. That is what was happening. This was not even at the point at which we were interacting with it. It was part of public participation. The same way. And by the way, my brother, you have not read that report. You have not read that reform.
But you've not tabled
that report reform.
How,
no, I'm not talking about what has come to Parliament, because this was not being an addition through Parliament. The people, if you had come for the process where the president launched,
Parliament's role
where the president launched, it was part of the public participation. The same way NGOs showed up, the same way religious leaders showed up, the same way members of the police force, members of the police oversight authority were there. That's what happened. Okay. Are we together? It was a public participation process where the police, the IG, the minister, the CS, were looking at how to structure
the
their
requirement
force.
was only for you to give your opinion on what was happening.
Yes,
but
it was not
parliamentary.
It was not parliamentary. Because this was a decision where the police were looking at how are we going to get more efficient, more effective to deliver the services that Kenyans want us to deliver. We are not changing the law on anything, which is what we are supposed to be.
Are you satisfied with the kind of proposals given by the president?
It's a work in process. Yes. This is a work in progress. In fact, as you keep reading,
how do
what
you
is happening,
something which is work in progress?
No,
it's very wrong.
My brother. What I'm saying is, if you just read today in one of the papers, the president on, was it last week when he was receiving this report, talked about some of the things that are going to happen over a 90 days period. We have a situation where the officers are going to, the structure of starting to give them house allowances is going to take some time. When I talk about work in progress, that's what I mean. This is, he didn't wake up that day and then we have changed uniforms the next day. No. This is a work in progress.
Don't you think that Parliament should have been involved to some level in as far as those proposals are concerned? Because they're far-reaching. They're very, getting police officers now to leave with a common Mwananchi. Don't you think that Parliament should have gotten involved beyond where it did?
You see, we have been, we have been demanding for the police to become a lot more effective at how they do their mandate. The IG decides this is how we're going to get more effective. That's what we have been doing. And then let's also remember what is the role of Parliament. We oversight government. We make laws. We represent the people who sent us to Parliament.
We make budget.
Here,
we make budget.
We make budget. And you see,
you must budget this item.
Now, what you should be asking, my brother, is,
do you think
is there a budget?
But do you feel that Parliament played its role of oversighting before this
what exactly
proposal
is
was
this?
rolled out?
What is this?
This proposal, the proposal by the president.
This is incubation of corruption. This is incubation of corruption. Somebody wants to misuse this opportunity.
You must stop opposing for the sake of opposing things.
No. You must
My
just
question is,
yes, because
do you think Parliament should have gotten involved to a larger extent,
what
to a greater extent?
What is it that which law has been changed? Because what law has been changed? This is what we should be talking about.
I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you what law.
Changed?
I'll tell you what law.
Yes.
You know, when you pass a budget, it is a law. The moment you begin making your own budget outside the normal
which has
budget,
been made, my brother?
This has budgetary implications.
No. Which ones?
Whatever reform.
Which ones?
Now these uniforms.
The uniforms.
Okay.
The housing.
But we buy police uniforms.
Yes.
We buy police uniforms.
At
At what point are we changing these uniforms? You see, when I say you haven't read the report,
without public participation.
Yeah.
You cannot change what?
Even that uniform.
My brother, the uniform we have right now by the police was passed by which parliament?
Okay, so my understanding is
don't take Kenyans for fools.
So my understanding is that the National Assembly was not part of this of oversighting these proposals by the president.
No.
We are in agreement?
And it's a breach of the law.
Which breach of which law?
It's constitution.
You guys are second termers, third termers. Which law was breached? Please tell
The
Kenyans.
Constitution of the Republic of Kenya.
Which one? Which law?
On public participation.
And how, but I just spoke about public participation. Religious leaders participated. Police officers participated. Which members of the public are we talking about?
Wambugu needs to listen.
I'm listening.
And these are the
trying
people
to hear.
misleading the president. And the government.
If these are kind of the people that
Then
we
the
are having
country-
in the Committee of Security and critical issues
And how is it
or
that 10 times
challenges
later you're
are
not in that
taking
committee?
place and he doesn't even know. What happens is this. Let me educate him. Parliament is there to represent people. Parliament is there to legislate. Parliament is there to oversight. And Parliament, as Mheshimiwa puts it, is also a budget-making house. Normally, when such a matter comes before the Committee of Security, which he sits in, so this change of uniform, it has a budget implication. First, we are going to have a radical change, whereby whatever uniforms they're having already, they are going to be phased off. That's going to be a waste. Okay? And for the new uniform to come in, it has a big budget implication. I'm sure some people somewhere, they're looking for that tender. I'm told maybe it's already been awarded.
I tend to think that's what you guys are worried about.
Can I finish, please? Yeah? So such an issue, when
Somebody
it comes
wants to
up,
make money.
the Security Committee, and I'm a very keen person, I looked at the budget. You know, we have the bottom-up approach. I looked at the votes under the Security Committee. I never saw anywhere where there's a vote of saying change of uniform in the police force. Where is the president going to get this money for the change of police force? What we know, we've been advocating for police reforms, but not police uniforms. So for you to wake up one day without any guided policy, and you change the uniforms without involving Kenyans, involving the police force themselves, and you as the president, and that is the responsibility of the IG, not even the president to come up and say we've changed this uniform. So the issue of this change of uniform, it has a budget implication. It is Parliament that passes that budget. We've not passed it. Where is the government getting this money to change?
And now that you feel that you did not play the role you feel you should have played,
What are you going to do about it?
Okay, what you're going to do is this. First, when I get back to Parliament, I'm going to ask a question. The minister in charge.
Yes.
Which he has to come and answer. We've started a question time. So did you follow the due process of the law to change this policy? And where are you going to get this funding? And not necessarily me. Somebody can even petition Parliament as we speak right now. And when we're discussing about this, we'll not be surprised that maybe we already have petitions on the floor of the House, because Kenyans have a right to petition on any matter, so that Parliament can be able to look into. Because we need to look at the issue of public participation.
Yes.
Were people involved in this, or what was...
Do you think that that is important? That
it is.
the entire National Assembly should actually be part of this debate?
Absolutely. And you see, they are talking about, and which is why I'm saying they haven't read this report. Because if they had read the report,
which
they know...
report is
you know, there was a report that was that the IG actually launched.
For who? Yes.
And it's not the president who launched it. It's the IG who launched that report. The president was just there as a chief guest. And this is the other thing, which is, and that's why I'm talking about these guys opposing things for the sake of opposing things. The second thing is,
you know, we are
this uniform. Yes, so am I. These uniforms that we're talking about.
I see on the floor
of course. What do you mean, my brother? That is
Honorable
not
Ngunjiri,
true.
continue.
You see, now he's making statements that have a lot of impact because he's trying to...
It is your time now.
Yes.
It is your time now.
So, the issue about uniforms, there's going to be... we are a budget-making house. Nobody has actually made a budget for these uniforms to be changed, right? So, and I'm saying, we have been buying uniforms. So what's going to happen is that now IG, through is going to most probably end up being our committee, and then we take the report to the House, and we're going to debate it. This is we've got a budget, whether it's a supplementary budget, whether it's in the next year.
It should be debated at the floor, on the floor of the
anything
House.
that is going to change the law or is going to affect budget is going to come to the floor of the House.
Okay.
These guys are just preempting and jumping the can.
Then I think, gentlemen, we're in agreement.
Yes.
Yes, members of the National
You don't
Assembly.
implement fast. Then once you implement, you bring it to Parliament. You don't implement.
Yeah. And you come
in
back.
kind
Brother,
expenditure.
the IG,
then you come.
The IG has powers to affect changes, because this is. Let me tell you what has just happened. And I asked these guys. There was a time 10 years ago. A decision was made to change from berets to the peak kofiyas that these guys wear. It did not go to Parliament.
I was not a member of Parliament at that time. So
I'm telling you,
so you can't come and say it was not Parliament.
Was it under the
Constitution?
Structural changes.
That was a different constitution.
Structural changes,
there was no public
including
participation.
how, you see, when the IG was appointed, his uniform changed. When he became IG, we didn't go to debate which kind of uniform he's going to be wearing.
Fred.
The police officers have 4 sets of uniform. They have the class A's, which are the ceremonious. They have the class B, which is the ordinary things. They have a class where when they're going to, when they're involved in operations, and they have one a jungle uniform that they go into the bush. For heaven's sake, how are we discussing this? These are structural, institutional issues. Where they affect budget, where they affect the law, we deal. But you can't micromanage the police officers.
Some of the reorganization of that force, including new command posts, because now even chiefs' camps will be turned into police posts, don't you think that has a huge budgetary implication?
Actually, it reduces the budget. Because what has happened, a lot of duplication has been removed. Remember, for example, at county level or at regional level, we had a regional officer in charge of CID, a regional officer in charge of AP, a regional officer in charge of National Police Service. Now, these 3 offices have been collapsing to 1 regional officer. So essentially, what we are actually doing is cutting costs.
Do you agree that this?
Well, you know, we need to see the provisions. We need to see the provisions. We need to see, you know, budgets of, you know, have indications. We need to see what is it, and we are going to wait for the IG when he comes for further budget in the House, because he has to explain and he has to show how he has reduced costs, saved money.
We'll make sure you come for that committee seat.
Yes, and we'll be there. It has to be debated on the floor.
Last word on this.
My last word is Article 10 of the Constitution is very clear in terms of principles of governance and the core values. And under Article 10, it is very critical written public participation. This is what we are crying for. For the president to have just come up with such a magnitude change of policy without public participation, that is very, very wrong. And there's no way you can come up with a policy and you say we are bringing it back to Parliament for Parliament to debate. Yes. Suppose the Parliament rejects it. What happens? There must be the due process that is followed in terms of changing of a policy. You don't just wake up and change a policy without even involving, even listening from the police force themselves. It was a shock. And people want police reforms, not police uniforms, my brother.
Okay.